mistakes.
Bobby, I think you give great motivation why you have to train, because that's really the end reason of us being prepared is to serve our public and be there for them when they need us. So, I mean, that's the motivation. But back to Mark, I mean, if his training is not, exciting, then somebody needs to do something to make it exciting. I mean, you got it. If it's not exciting and it's not, people aren't going to want to do it. So you got to keep it new and you got to keep it relevant and you got to make it realistic. And and then people, it's not just limited to what your department. As a firefighter, you have a responsibility to seek out people like Bobby that teaches and stuff, and you got to reach out and get your training yourself. That's your responsibility. People, it's not always the department's responsibility.
Well, the fire service, in regards to training, has an excellent record for drills, multi-company opportunities, going to the training tower. But I think a lot of times we fail to capitalize on opportunities for training. And one of them is just living in the Bay Area, all the different events that go on. So, I mean, if you wanted to pick the Gilroy Garlic Festival, Beta Breakers, and Cinco de Mayo, probably three very different events, and they attract three very different crowds of people. But if we looked at those events and we said, you know what, let's test an operational part of our plan between police, fire, EMS, the CERT teams, the hospitals, public service workers, mass transit, and just pick a different operational opportunity just to exercise it during a real live event. Because this is a great opportunity. I mean, we already have most of the people in the room at that time. Now let's flex in the CERT volunteers. Let's let's bring in as many people as we can. Let's bring in the people from the ASPCA, and let's take an opportunity here. And we have enough events that go on that we can make them real live training events, and it'll give people an opportunity to test what they know, and let's see if it works. I mean, training is great. Exercises and drills are great. I love to drill. I want to see what the breaking point is. This is a great opportunity, and it's a live event. It's a live event, and I don't think that we capitalize it. And we have a ton of those that go on. And we don't reach out, and we really don't harness into those.
I think that's very important for an operational standpoint, but I would say for the everyday responder, going in the exact opposite direction and taking an opportunity where it's just us sitting and we happen to see a police officer at the coffee shop. Hey, come on over, let's have a chat. Not only meet them, but hey, let's run through a scenario real quick. Let's say we've got somebody holding a hostage in the back of the coffee shop here. What do you expect from me? Here's what you can expect from us. And have that just, like you were saying, we call it burning the neighborhood. You go out shopping, you stop, you get out, you look at the building, okay.
You might want to edit that out.
Smoke on the third floor. Smoke on the third floor. What ladder will we put up? What line are we going to deploy? We just take that as a learning opportunity. If we can, a lot of folks, we're lucky in the Bay Area that we have all these events. But if I'm just me and a firefighter in rural New Mexico, and we don't have a lot of events, and we have very limited resources, the opportunity to make those connections and to do that training might just be over a cup of coffee.
Well, and that's something that I learned back east when I was riding on a volunteer ambulance squad in Newark, New Jersey. We would go by the rescue squad all the time, and we would hang out and have a cup of coffee. And the captain would say, Dan, you know what? When we're on scene, we generally detail a firefighter to the back of the squad, and he mans a first aid station. It would be great if you guys will give you the radio. You'll be first aid one. You'll man the first, and that'll give us another firefighter to fight the incident. And over a period of time, we learned roles and responsibilities. But it was all over. You have crumb cake? Come on inside. Let's pour a cup of coffee. I mean, we need more of those opportunities. And I don't know why. I don't know at what point. I mean, maybe it's a generational difference. Maybe people view themselves differently. But when I had my career position, when I was working as a paramedic in Newark, New Jersey, we would always go by the station. and we would always chat about a fire, chat about an incident, what could we do better, what was working, what wasn't working. And it was, it was more or less like, a ground level percolation, things would percolate upwards, of how we needed to change and how we need, but I rarely see that nowadays.
We still do in San Bruno. I mean, I think the San Bruno incident was a perfect example just of what you're talking about. I mean, our firefighters had no water, and they knew because they've spent time with the water company. They've gone and saw where the tanks are. They know where the grids are. They knew that their grid was out. They knew where the next grid was. They gave great direction. The water department knew what they had to do. They worked together, and I think that's what you're looking for, and that's what, as a firefighter, or a fire captain at that level, you need to know your city's infrastructure, because other firefighters coming in, they're gonna, if you give them the right direction, they're gonna be maybe able to make it happen. South San Francisco, all they needed was a little direction, and then they made it happen.
And great example that Justin. I mean, you laid out you grab a cop, you're in the coffee shop, and you say, hey, what would you want us to do? And during that conversation, you might want to say, we've got the building plans for this building. And the cop would go, you have the what? Well, we do inspections here. We can tell you where the doors are, where the scuttle is. There's a dumbwaiter outside. There's a there's a sidewalk. There's 6 different ways into this coffee shop, and the cop might stand there and go, wait a second, you guys have we do inspections. That's a resource for him. Now there's a relationship, and that relationship has some value and some trust and then he'll go back to the precinct and say, do you know that the firemen are carrying the plans? And then think of the law enforcement officer doesn't get to do that. He doesn't get to do building inspections like we do.
Exactly.
So he has to rely on being intuitive and trying to conceptualize, is there a back entrance? Whereas we could say, yeah, there is. And as a matter of fact, it's 6 steps down to a landing and then 4 steps to the basement. And you can kill the power to this building if you reach over 3 inches and pull the shut off. So that's invaluable to those guys.
It seems like collectively, all the agencies that are going to be responding to a large-scale incident have all the information. We've just got it all in pieces. And if we have that relationship to be able to pull those resources in, and like you said, PD can get with us, get the building plan, exactly what's going on. We can talk to the power company. A lot of people don't realize, first responders, younger guys anyway, that the Department of Public Works and usually the utility company can mobilize a large amount of specially trained people very, very quickly to clear roads, to cut down trees. You don't need to be sending a big ladder truck out to just trim a tree. One fella in a utility truck can get it taken care of. So there's a lot of resources in the community, and it seems like everybody has a piece to the puzzle. And when it all works smoothly, we can see the entire picture.
Well, and use the seat at the table analogy too. I would say that for the rest of us out there, firemen, police officers that may be watching, EMS folks, invite people over to sit and eat, because I think that's one of the things we see with some of our younger firefighters, and even some of my friends. I grew up. I was potty trained at gunpoint. We had a very military family. My sons are all military, and so anyway. We always ate dinner, and we always sat down and waited, and with their mom, and their friends would come to have dinner with us and say, we're all going to sit at the table together? Mm-hmm. Why? I said, well, because then Dad goes around and says, what you do, what you do, what you do. When you sit and break bread and share and sit at a table together, tremendous things happen. And there's tremendous evidence. I mean, it's overwhelming empirical evidence that simulation, whether it's by mental simulation, by conceptualizing something, or drawing it on a napkin, or doing a computer, is real learning. I mean, you create real mental files of that, and you can access that under pressure. And I think we saw a little bit of that in San Bruno. When Phil realized he had no water, he knew right away, as you said, and he must have gone over that grid map a million times. He said, tell him to connect on that hydrant on the other side of San Bruno, just like that. And this is a man who's facing a fireball hundreds of feet in the air, under 400 pounds of pressure, and he's got his crew and several other crews that he's managing, but still was able to access that, which is tremendous credit to Phil especially, but even more so to the fact that he must have gone through that type of mental simulation, as you were referring to, innumerable times to be that effective.
And being able to take the information that you've learned in your past, not just in training, but in my service, we go out on Saturday and we check hydrants. We've got a list. We've got to check about a dozen hydrants. Well, not only are we checking to make sure that they work, but we're also noticing that this side of the street's on a different main than that side of the street. I may not need that information right now, but it's something I'll make a note of. 15-year down the line, there's something going on. That one's dry. Hey, guys, like you just said, go across the street. That one might still be good. It's not that I was ever trained that, ever learned it. It's just something that I picked up by doing what seemed like a boring, mundane task at the time. And a lot of the younger guys may not see that opportunity to look around in their community, but hopefully the officers are getting out there and really getting them fired up about learning about what's going on in their community and what resources they really have and the things they're learning when they don't even realize it. And that's when our real learning takes place, is when you're having a good time, you're doing something else, you realize, oh, I just learned something. That's great. Now, with the sharing before the incident, we have the incident, and after the San Bruno explosion down the line, all the facts will come out, everything will be decided. Can establishing this community ahead of time help us learn more afterwards? Or will it be too much friendly a situation for us to be able to tell our friends in the other service something went wrong?
I think one of the strong points and weak points of fire service, in my experience, is that we're probably way too hard on ourselves. I know we feel pretty good about our effort after this, but I know that once we get all the facts and stuff, we're going to say, how could we have done this better? How with our comm plan really do what we wanted it to do? Mm-hmm. Did we really have the organization in place? We do that. We had work, the BART drills. Dan, you have those too. And we had a BART drill, and they say, hey, you guys did great, all the BART people, and we were like, what? And we were so hard on ourselves. So I guarantee that we will have a real complete incident action report that tells you what we did right, and I would be shocked if we did not point out what we didn't do right.
I'm looking past that. When the after incident report comes out and all the firefighters say, here's what we did right, here's what we did wrong, after that, will these relationships that we've built up before the incident make it easier or more difficult to go to the utility company, to the water company, to the police and say, here's what we really need you to do next time? Do you think our relationship ahead of time will help, or will we be a little too friendly to be willing, like you said, the BART folks are saying, hey, great job. Are they saying great job because they don't know what was going on, or because they really think you did a great job and just don't want to say anything?
Well, I mean, as long as you're not having like the Rustling Hose Company and the Liberty Hose Company in 1870 have some robust discussion, I think that
discussion in quotation marks,
and I'll leave it at that. I think that it'll probably facilitate that discussion because people are going to want to know what could we do, because the natural progression, the natural question, because even now, we get citizens who help other citizens, and they will come back to the station, they will call back to headquarters, and they'll want to replay the incident in detail, and they'll always finish with the last question, is there something else I could have did? Because they want to know for the next time. Mm-hmm. So I think regardless of who we're talking about, whether we're talking about Public Works, the Water Department, CERT team, whatever organization, it makes them easier because they have that one-to-one relationship. And I know that he's going to give me some honest feedback. He's going to respect me because he's going to realize, hey, this is the water department guy. This is how I have to present it to him. I'm not going to give it to him like I'm going to give it to another fireman. I'm not going to have a robust discussion with him like I'd have it with another fireman. But, I'm going to give him the information that he needs. And, that encoding and that decoding between those two individuals is going to occur. And they'll just be better off the next time this happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dan, I think... after this, the fire department sets a great example on how, ICS and the water department and others, they see it and they're motivated and they understand that it works and they want to copy that operation, because they're such an important part of the EOC. And, this is the first time we exercised our EOC, and they're really watching. I think they're more receptive after an incident like this to do things, and it makes our job easier the next time. Hopefully, there is no next time.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. I was in New Jersey during the anthrax scare, and I mean, I didn't respond to any incident that had anthrax, but in the state we had 400 we would get 400 white powder cases a year prior to October of 2001. You know, one a day, everybody can handle that. After it came out that anthrax went through the Hamilton post office and it went to New York City and it went to Washington, D.C., went from 400 a year to 1,000 a day. And so now we had health departments wanted to train their people in ICS, and everybody had a vest and they knew what. And every time there was,
Army.
but you know what? Every time there was an incident, there was always that play back and forth. How did we do? Did we do all right? What can we do better? You know, and it's, well, stay off the radio, and you know, give them a little, you know, give them some pointers and try to point them in the right direction. So, yeah, you know, those things are gonna go on, and this is a great opportunity for you guys, you know, to work out. Hey, you know, this is what we need to do for next time.
And I think incident analysis is important and review is important. And I think that one of the things that it's very heartening to see is that today we seem to see a little bit of a resurgence in rhetoric. In other words, people are disagreeing in a much more dignified, in a much more respectful, and in a much more measured way. We're not seeing a lot of the, you know, I remember when I came on a while ago, you know, occasionally people would go across the table at one another, but that's very, very rare anymore. And in school now you're seeing where students are learning how to debate and to discuss their point without diminishing your point. I mean, you can hold a different opinion and still, and those two opinions can be diametrically opposed and every bit as valid. We discuss politics all the time, and we often have very, you know, differing views but similar goals. So we respect that differing opinion in order to make our opinion more inclusive, in order to make our opinion more credible. If you can't discuss your stance on something, then you really have no standing. You have no stance. And I think that it's heartening to see that that's coming back. This forum is a great example of that, because we're not always going to agree. But and I think that the after actions on this will be excellent. Where they get very sticky, as we all know in the fire services, when anybody gets hurt or a firefighter gets killed or multiple line of duty deaths, and then they become much more difficult discussions to have for a wide variety of reasons. But we're getting better there too. Chronologically, we always do a good job. Epidemiologically, we tend to do a good job. And now we're starting to learn how to really systemically go in and look at things, not to point blame anymore, because I think we've moved past that, but to try to really determine why we did the things we did at the time in that order. And sometimes we get the order wrong. Sometimes what we did didn't work out, but it doesn't mean we did it intentionally or criminally. And I think that we're seeing some really good, intelligent discussion in the fire service in particular, and I'm glad we're taking that lead. I think it's a very dignified position to have, and I would hope that our political body would follow our example and have respectful, dignified, and courteous discussions on the issues, and not name calling and that silliness it tends to devolve into.
Yeah, and we hope that'll happen after all the facts come out. But a lot of times that's what we hope to see in the command post, or even between two officers of two engine companies that arrive on scene at the same time. Instead of trying to fight for the incident or get things going, having not only the relationship with other providers and other agencies, but within your own organization. In my service, a lot of times when a box is rung and two engines are due, it's a fight to get first in. And sometimes there's two engines at an intersection. Some people still don't want to back down. But it's having that ability to say, hold on, let them go, and not be worried about it. Not everybody has to be first due and quote unquote get the glory. Somebody's got to back them up. And that's always a position that needs to be filled. But I would love to see more of that civil discourse, more of that understanding of opinions initially. A lot of times we're excited, voices are raised, we're not sure what's going on. If we can take a step back, remember our training, remember our experience, make positive, good decisions on the fire ground, at an emergency scene, at a disaster, or anything like that. Good, clear communications, respectful communications, and that's going to set up, like we were saying, down the line, that incident's just going to be easier and easier and easier because there's one plan, one idea, one concept, and it's working.
I think as leaders, we owe that to captains and firefighters. As a chief, you're going to have an angry employee, And that's one of the first things you learn is you have to respond not with anger and just respond with reason. And that translates to as being a good chief officer on the fire ground. Things are chaotic around you, but if you have that calming influence, it seems to filter down, and so I think it's real important. And I think Bobby makes a good point. I think by just having those discussions at the table in a calm manner, it's just the way to do business.
Go ahead.
In the example of the two engines, if you're the second engine, just tell the guys, listen, let them go first while they're grabbing the plug, we'll grab their line.
There's a ways we're out.
There's always
Yeah, there's always something.